What will our verse be? I know it's going to be influenced by her because she was that powerful voice, and she stood in front of all of us at the podium in my classroom, and she shared with us the gift of her life in her poetry, in her words, in her smile, in her hugs, in her squeals of delight. And sometimes her most powerful message was in her silence. So we're going to celebrate today. And tomorrow we're going to go out and we're going to continue loving Rachel. And we're going to write that next verse. And we're going to write that next act. And our lives are going to be always filled with the love that Rachel gave each and every one of us. Thank you.
I have to follow that. That's not an easy task. Thank you. You did. Thank you, Jim. And I'm wondering that I think my cup of tea may be lost with his cup of coffee. Dear Rachel, I can still remember your laugh, your face, your jokes, your smile. Those memories go on in my mind for a million miles. I can say stop, but the pain never ends. The ways of faith you cannot bend. The hardest thing in life to do is wave goodbye to a friend. And we are all here today to wave goodbye to Rachel, our friend. I'd spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to write, what to say, how to tell all of you who she was to me. And I'm at a loss of words. So I realized the only thing I can do is stand up here and give you Rachel's words. I first met her when she walked into my creative writing class her freshman year of high school. And for any of you who may have been in that class with us, you know that she was definitely a special person, and she helped to bind that class into a whole cohesive unit. So I want to share with you some of her writings. First one is called Rory. Rory sits in his swiveled chair, swiveling, judge of the Young Writers Contest. Oh boy, this was going to be a long, hard day of reading pages upon pages of pretentious wannabe teen authors, pretentious wannabe masterpieces. Hours of critiquing said pieces, placing each into categories and grading each by a strict, complicated number system. Oh boy, oh boy. A knock sounds at Rory's door. He lifts himself out of the chair, grunting as the weight of his round belly resists. His joints creak. It's going to rain soon. He can feel it in his bones. He pauses. He's getting old. He's turning into what his long-dead grandfather used to be, whining about his aching, weather forecasting bones. Oh boy. Of all the old, experienced English teachers in the Tri-County area, he can't understand why they had to pick the only one inexperienced one to do the judging for this wretched contest. Oh boy, oh boy. He walks to the door and opens it. What is it? A young-looking man, probably an intern of some sort, looks up at Rory from the heap of stapled papers he carries. Hello, Mr. Green? Here are the stories and essays you'll be judging. He hands Rory the stack and scurries off as fast as his spindly legs can take him. Rory harumphs at this. He puts the papers on his desk and looks at it for a few seconds. A mountain, a behemoth, consisted of words upon words written by conceited teenagers. This is what he'll be doing all day. Oh boy. He picks up the first story, a tiny little 2-page thing entitled The Dog. Already he wonders why this teen even bothered. Oh boy. He skims through it, yawning at the 2-dimensional plot. He isn't the avid reader he should be, but even he could tell that this story was a failure. The exciting not storyline consisted of a dog being hungry, then going to his food bowl to relieve the growling in his stomach. Oh boy, oh boy. Still, it fits the requirements. So he scribbles the grade the rubric requires on the very top of his trusty red pen and puts it in the spot on his desk reserved for papers graded. 1 down, infinity to go. He picks up the next story. His eyes widen at the thickness. It is a wonderfully composed story filled with thrills and magic and secrecy. It's beautiful. He almost questions if a teenager actually wrote it. But then he checks the word count. 400 words beyond the requirement. He almost curses and puts it into the rejected pile and puts a 0 at the top for neglect to follow directions. The 0 pains him, but it has to be done. Paper upon paper upon paper he grades. Eventually the to-do pile shrinks down to nothing. It's finished, done. He sighs with relief. The winner turns out to be a well-organized essay describing the writer's extensive list of acts of charity. The next one is called Tea Party. A tea party? Ness looked up at her older sister, a bemused expression on her freckled face. What, Eliza? Eliza stepped closer, her golden ringlets swaying as she walked forward. Her sapphire eye shone bright against her porcelain skin. With a slight blush on her cheeks and wearing that frilly lace dress, she looked exactly like a doll come to life. Ness felt a twinge of jealousy. Her limp, mousy hair and dull brown eyes could never compare. Eliza smiled warmly. I said, dear sister, that we should have a tea party. Wouldn't it be fun? Oh, yes, Ness exclaimed, clapping her hands together. Shall we ask Mother to brew us some tea? Oh, that won't be needed. Eliza took another step. In the gloom of the darkened parlor, Ness noticed that her sister looked quite intimidating. Oh, said Ness, her smile becoming more fixed than genuine. Then did you want me to set up the stuffed animals? I mean, invite the guests? No, Eliza's grin spread. Those cerulean eyes were wide and frightening. Ness began to shiver. Sister, you're scaring me. Close your eyes. Still trembling violently, Ness obeyed. Just before her eyelids shut, she saw the glint of a blade in Eliza's hand. The screams echoed through the house. They were ignored. Eliza sunk the dagger's tip into the flesh of the corpse's wrist, cutting a long gash along the inside of the forearm. Warm blood trickled into a dainty white teacup. Eliza drank it slowly, savoring the taste. The blood stained her lips like ruby-colored lipstick, making her appearance even more doll-like. I love tea parties, she whispered against her cup's rim, and took another sip. Very different from the first one. While I was teaching, I always had this poem that I would have the students read by, I'm going to forget his name. I just forgot the author's name. I can't believe that. Spoon River Anthology. Somebody help me out with the name of the author. Edgar Lee Masters. Okay. They would have to read Nancy Knapp, and they would have to write stories based on this poem. And this is her poem called her story called The Bonfire. I watched the bonfire. I imagined the flames reflecting in my eyes, making me look demonic. I imagined that the fire was sentient and that it was trying to communicate with me its dance. I imagined, just an hour beforehand, the bonfire had been a pile of cardboard boxes. Then I had imagined it was a castle preparing itself to defend against a fierce siege. But now all that was left of the castle was a crackling, aromatic fire. I imagined. The other guests of the bonfire party gave out a jubilant cheer that blended into laughter. It was time to burn the effigies. One of the guests approached the bonfire and tossed in a scribbled drawing of her math teacher. I imagined the doodle was a witch being burned at the stake. Her screams echoed, or at least they would have, I imagined. Sometimes I wished I could escape my imagination, to get out of my own head for a while. Perhaps I could try to experience the real world a bit. Try to feel the wet grass on my feet or the heat of the flames on my face. But no, I tried and failed in the past. My head was my home. It was just how I lived. It was what I did. I imagined. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Caroline Flowers, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Camp Honey Creek for Girls. It's in Texas. I go to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, so I was able to drive down, whereas nobody else from the camp